How's it going, everybody? I had a question for you. What do you do when you take a new rookie that's been pretty highly praised and has a lot of potential? You take a player that has shown results and has been performing at the world-class level, and then you pair that with a player that has had extreme high highs and is kind of leveled out in their career. You get a team with a lot of praise and a lot of hype coming into the offseason because of the amount of talent that has been brought to the North American region. You've got two European imports joining a former Optic team member. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about or who I'm alluding to, it's the one and only M80, a team that came in with a lot of expectations from some. I can tell you guys candidly that my expectations for them were like top 8 at best, and I can't even begin to believe how well that prediction went. The general community consensus, the people's intentions, and even some of the pro teams when they rated them had a lot of expectations for this team based upon how they performed in scrims and some of the stuff off camera. But when pressure was on, when everything mattered, when no lives were left, the team crumbled. Why is that? What happened? So in today's video, we're going to take a deep dive. We're going to take a look and talk about my opinions, the expectations, and where I think things went wrong from M80. Some of this stuff is going to provide some behind the scenes insight that you guys don't know about, some of the problems with M80 as an organization and things of that nature, but problems with, I think, these big investments and the stuff that goes into making this happen. So first and foremost, let's talk about the players. Number one, we've got AJ, former Optic Gaming, similar to LG this season where they ended up 7th in the 22-23 season. Obviously AJ probably the highest paid in my opinion on the team. He's got a little bit of content backing. He does a lot of streaming as well, and the namesake for him as well. But AJ really hasn't had heights in my opinion since FaZe. You are discussing a time where we haven't really seen AJ be that main guy. And while yes, Optic paired him and there was a lot of good offensive opportunities, it just felt like too much of the same and it never really worked out. So since then, between FaZe and everything else, AJ hasn't really gotten the love and attention, even though AJ as an individual is very well respected. Second on the pay grade is going to be Dignitas's Jorias. He came in originally with Appjack and so on and so forth. They had that run in Sweden where they went perfect in Swiss. They turned heads. Jorias had like a 1.3 octane rating, was like heavily praised as one of the best performers. But for whatever reason, when it came to Swiss, the performance wasn't there. Took a little bit of time, is now finished with schooling, can dedicate full time to playing competitively. Went with Oxygen last year with Archie, and I forget their third off the top of my head, but he got replaced by Oski, and top 6 as well. So you've got two teams that are basically a pairing of players that are like just below major capabilities. And then last but not least is a player that we all consider very, very talented. He is one of 3 Moroccans in the scene outside of Itachi, and Drawley is Nas, who is cracked. He played for SK Gaming the year before with Rai, who's now on Wild, and then you've got Tekos, who a lot of people are starting to pay attention to, who's over on SA. Results-wise, they didn't even qualify. Like, they didn't have results at all to give them, like, rankings or whatever, but I don't know how much Nas actually put time and effort into it, and it seems like this time around is his real first shot. It seems like he's like, you know what? I'm going to give it support, financial sustainability, and I'm really going to give it a go. So you've got one player who's regarded very, very much so for his ones, another player who came in as a ones god and has shown individual talents at the world level, and the Nas, who, although unproven, many tout as an up-and-comer that is expected to be quite good. Between the 3 of them, I'm thinking pay-wise for the roster, it's got to be pretty hefty. I'm sure AJ's getting paid over 10. Jorias is probably in the 6 to 10 range, and Nas maybe like 4 to 6 as well. Knowing kind of the inexperience of the organization of M80, I'm sure their salaries are adding up pretty hefty. On top of that, you also have to take into consideration that you've got 2 Europeans coming in where you're providing visa issues and making sure that they are legal to perform in the United States. They probably stayed in Canada for a little bit temporarily with the Shopify Rebellion bootcamp area in Canada. Eventually, they then got a Airbnb and whatever their housing and living situation was for that, like flights and everything else. You're talking 2 players living outside of their home area, having to be awarded a place to live or like an Airbnb with like proper internet and PCs and everything else. So you're talking not only 3 salaries, you're also talking travel accommodations for 2. You're also talking about living expenses for 2 outside of what they are already being paid. And then on top of that, you've got a coach in Nick, former Dignitas, Falcons, so on and so forth. He's bounced around quite a bit. You've got their assistant coach, JC, who, if you guys haven't seen JC's analysis, he talks about associating a lot of things to kind of more common terminology. He talks about like cover two play styles, where when you're on offense, you keep two at the midfield to control boost and only send one rather than doing a three-man rotation style, like different things like that. So JC finally gave an opportunity. Much love to JC. He's a regular here on the channel. And on top of that, they knew that obviously with a younger person, they were going to need some sort of mental coach or some sort of person that can assist with the day-to-day, the struggles, the frustrations, the being away from home, so on and so forth. The difficulty with that is M80 didn't provide them the funding to do it. So the mental coach is now being paid for by the players themselves, which adds another layer of pressure of being like, you know what, we are spending money on something out of our own pocket to hopefully get us results. How did it go? So we go into the next portion, which is how did it go? Out of the gate, dominant and Swiss. Some things never change, and they look incredible. But in their first event, in Qualifier 1, they run into a hot Shopify Rebellion. They lose in quarterfinals 2-4. Second qualifier, and you're going to see a trend here. They lost in quarterfinals to OG 2-4. In their third and final qualifier of the first split, they lose to TSM in Game 7. A team that they should definitely have beaten. Favorable matchup, everything in their favor. And the crazy thing is, in all three of those qualifiers, when you look at the Swiss results, M80 number 1 is 9-3, 3-0. In the second one, they are 3-0, 9-2 with wins over Energy, TSM, and Gen G. And then in the third and final qualifier, they end up struggling this time at 3-2 with losses to Omelette and LG. You've got 3 top 8s, and that's kind of where it stops. Once they get into the best 7s, last life on the line, they falter. We then would go into another split, and again, same situation. Top 8 lost to G2, which no one was really beating G2, as you guys all know. Qualifier 5, another top 8 where they're losing to Cloud9 this time. And when it comes to the last and final qualifier in Qualifier 6, what is, in my opinion, you got nothing left to lose, no pressure, no expectations. Everybody assumes you're going to drop out. They actually don't make top 8. So you have top 8 for 5 events over the course of 3-4 months. And then in the final one where it matters the most, you lose out to a struggling Dignitas who just recently made a roster change, got rid of their star player Evo, brought in Gyro again after they had some turmoil, and they still failed to qualify, which is pretty sad. It is really frustrating to see, because I personally have I enjoy everybody on that roster. I like the coach, I like the players, I like the situation, I like the foundation. Like, this to me was like, you know what? Nick, their coach, has the opportunity to really make an impact. He can do everything he wants. He can bring the player that he wants. He can identify and create this thing that is going to be, and it falls apart. And why is that? Based upon my assessment, I think it's a couple factors. Number one, M80 as an organization didn't set them up for success. I think M80 as an org is underfunded. I know for a fact people aren't being paid on time, or late in general. And as a player, just some life advice for anybody is when you sign a contract, you best believe that you have a pay structure, whether it be net 30, net 60. And if it is not paid within that time, you either sue or pursue legal action. You make sure that you put in interest to make sure, hey, for every time that I'm not being paid, you're paying extra on top of that to make sure I'm getting what I'm getting. I make sure it's in writing that these things are happening. And if they don't pay, then stop repping them. Like, it is time for people to stop letting organizations get away with poor management, poor logistical help, poor financing. It is not the player's fault that you don't have the money. Not acceptable. So you have the stress of having to cover things out of your own pocket. You're also not being paid on time, which is additional stress. And you're not being properly supported in the right way because the organization isn't taking the proper love, care, attention. And by all means, they did some good things between bringing the players over, handling visas, and it's not all bad for M80. But all of this done, all in, if my assessments are right, they're looking just shy of $500,000 invested into this roster for 1 year. On top of that, we just recently found out that M80 has been let go. They have been released. They are no longer repping the organization. So you're spending what is essentially $500,000, give or take 50 to 100 grand. I don't know exactly. At this point, it's just make-believe Monopoly money, it feels like. You don't even retain them for an extended period of time to take ownership of the buyout. So for those that are unaware, usually when the offseason hits, you can take a reduced salary so it keeps the players paid during the offseason when nothing's going on. Their responsibilities are lessened, but it is basically allowed to keep a retainer on them. So when the next season happens, if you decide to not move forward with those players, you can sell them and recoup a bunch of that money because the player has, hopefully, value. But by you just releasing it, you invested a bunch of money, you gave them a bunch of money, allegedly. Hopefully, they actually pay them. And then you released them. Like, the whole situation is just poor. Like, it is a horrible, horrible business across the board on what they decided to do. Why do I not think they got results? Personally, and I've said this to Nick directly, I don't think he was well equipped to be in that position. I think all of the pressures of said, hey man, here's the keys to the castle. It is on you to find a team. It is on you to make success happen. It is on you for us to win, to go to majors. I don't think he is properly equipped to be that person to handle that pressure. So rather than him being able to just focus on, I need to coach and I need to coach these players, I think he was trying to balance a bunch of other stuff too on top of that, and it was a little bit more than he can chew. Even with bringing in additional staff, I don't know if he has the leadership capabilities to be able to really believe in what he's selling, being able to converse in a way that says, hey, this is, I'm confident and I'm bold about the things I'm doing. Please buy in with me, which I think it caused some frustrations, I think, internally. On top of that, I think when you bring in an assistant coach, you got to make sure you're all on the same page, and there's a lot of different factors. And by all means, this is from third-party assessment. This is not, like, I don't know specifically what went in and what went down behind the scenes, but based upon results and kind of my expertise as someone who's been consulting and doing this at a very high level, I can only assume that there are certain things internally that created turmoil. A lot of that, I think, is pressure from the organization onto Nick, and then Nick also trying to carry that burden upon himself, as well as the personality type that Nick is, and trying to be able to handle some of the things that he did. There has been problems in the past, and I think this is a sign of maturity, and I've told Nick this as well, is Nick is one to be very strong-headed and strong opinion about the way things go, but will then later admit to his wrongdoings and be like, you know what, this was totally wrong, this is the right way to do it, these opinions and these advices were correct, and I'm willing to learn from that, which to me is a sign of maturity. It's a sign of growing older and just learning through experience. And I think that's the best thing for Nick out of all of this, is that this is going to be a massive reflection of, I learned a ton. I may have failed in this project, but it's going to make me better equipped in the future if I get those opportunities, which from his Twitter, he has stated that there is one. It looks like he's got a new project, a new opportunity that's coming to him. Best of luck to him as well. But what does it mean for all the other players? Jorius has already stated he's going back to Europe. Nas very likely doing the same. As for AJ, he is currently playing in Shift Summer League alongside Mist and Gyro under the Peeps name that he was originally with way back. It seems like the entire band is disbanding and finding new homes, which is pretty common. What does that mean though for the future? What does that mean for M80? I don't know. I don't know if M80 is going to be back. I don't know if they have any financial support, or if it's just coming in from like a VC funding, or how they are paying their bills. I don't see them having any sponsors or any titleship opportunities like a G2 Stride or Mobile One type situation. So how they're affording to do it, but yeah, they're probably taking a $350,000 to $450,000 loss, if I do assume, based upon the players' average salaries, coaching, staffing, so on and so forth, for nothing. They hopefully got some more followers out of it, but that's about it, which is crazy. And that all happened in 6 months. Wild times. Wild times. Should have signed at least a 2-year contract, in my opinion. Yeah, crazy stuff. A lot of organizations, again, making mistakes and not learning from others. But that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys have additional questions, or if you'd like to talk more about the M80 situation, let me know in the comments down below. Happy to answer questions, whether it be there or on stream, twitch.tv/Lawler, or YouTube, probably daily nowadays. So, let in mind, if you guys enjoy the content, like, subscribe, helps me out greatly, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.